So the big topic in the media right now is the conflict in Syria, and the media are all over it right now. And Sean Spicer, um, who I like Sean Spicer. I think he does a good job at defending President Trump, defending his platform, and it seems like he mirrors what Trump's message and what Trump's agenda actually is fairly accurately, because as we all know, there is a lot of confusion, so to speak, in the Trump campaign. There's a lot of different uh, points of view in the Trump campaign that are oftentimes at odds with each other. But I feel like Sean Spicer does a pretty good job of actually portraying what Trump's message is. Um, but he let the ball, he dropped the ball on this one. So Sean Spicer came out and compared Bashar al-Assad, the dictator of Syria, to Adolf Hitler. Um, Not only did he compare Assad to Hitler, he actually said Assad was worse than Hitler. And that's an absurd statement in and of itself, but it was actually even a little bit more absurd than that. So this is from the New York Times. Sean Spicer draws backlash by comparing Hitler and Assad. Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, set off an intense backlash on Tuesday when he suggested that President Bashar Assad of Syria was worse than Hitler, and said incorrectly that Hitler did not use chemical weapons during World War II or against his own people, which is a pretty absurd and bizarre statement, because there were many atrocities, done by Adolf Hitler, obviously, one of which was gassing millions of people to death. So, Mr. Spicer was attempting to lend gravity to the actions of Mr. Assad, who United States officials believe used sarin gas, a lethal chemical weapon, in an attack on a rebel-held area of Idlib province last week that killed dozens. Quote, "We didn't use chemical weapons in World War II. You had someone as despicable as Hitler who didn't even sink to using chemical weapons," Mr. Spicer said. He continued, "So you have to, if you are Russia, ask yourself, is this a country and a regime that you want to align yourself with?" Now, aligning with, the moderate rebels, quote unquote, which, is might as well be ISIS, and, aligning with Turkey, the dictator of Turkey, Erdogan, and aligning with Saudi Arabia, isn't exactly too great either. Just want to point that out. The White House charged Tuesday that Russia has sought to cover up the attack. I'm not sure what evidence they have to support that. Asked to clarify his remarks, Mr. Spicer acknowledged that Hitler used chemical agents, but maintained that there was a difference. "I think when you come to sarin gas, he was not using the gas on his own people the same way that Assad is doing," Mr. Spicer said, and mentioned Holocaust centers, apparently referring to Nazi death camps. Shortly after the briefing, Mr. Spicer tried to clarify his comments, saying in a statement that he did not intend to be dismissive of the Holocaust. Quote, "In no way was I trying to lessen the horrendous nature of the Holocaust," he said. "I was trying to draw a distinction on the tactic of using airplanes to drop chemical weapons on population centers. Any attack on innocent people is reprehensible and inexcusable." So, Hitler killed millions of people. He killed millions of Jews. He said that he was going to basically relocate them, and he sent them by train, by the millions, to death camps to be gassed to death. I mean, you can't exactly compare that to Assad, who is no angel, has done some bad things. I'm pretty sure he's actually violated, he's committed some war crimes. I'm sure he's violated international law. There's a lot of evidence to show that. I don't think he's a good guy. Again, he's a dictator, not the worst dictator out there by any means. Syria is actually one of the more stable, areas in that region, and is secular. So there's multiple different religions allowed to actually live there. So you can't really compare Adolf Hitler, who killed millions of people and started a war that killed tens of millions of people, something like 20 million Germans and 20 million Russians, and hundreds of thousands of American troops and British troops. I mean, it goes on and on. To compare that to Bashar Assad, who is embroiled in a civil war, so of course there's going to be, your own people are going to be the casualties on either side, basically. And this is a civil war that we have actually instigated. The United States, Saudi Arabia, other NATO countries have actually instigated this civil war in Syria by funding the quote-unquote moderate rebels that, again, are basically ISIS. And then you've got just all these other different terrorist organizations running around, all, fighting with each other in many cases, all trying to topple Assad. It's a big, gigantic mess. And you got Sean Spicer coming out and comparing Assad to Hitler and saying that, on top of that, that Hitler didn't use chemical weapons when he gassed millions of people. So, and I get, there's a distinction he's trying to make. I'm not sure what the point of trying to make this kind of moral equivalency is. I think people should really stop comparing people to Hitler, because what that does, it really doesn't get much worse than Hitler. He was a really bad dude. He did some horrendous things. So, I mean, what happens is you kind of water down what Hitler actually did when you try to compare people like Assad to Hitler. Again, that's like trying to compare, one of the Joker's henchmen to Lex Luthor or something. All right, it just doesn't cut it. And Sean Spicer was getting a lot of flack for this. He actually came out and apologized. So it has not been a good day for Sean Spicer, to say the least. And now I want to move on to an article from Reuters. So you've got all these people out here who like to, show you, like the media. Right now, the main thing they're trying to show is all the different, the footage of the gas attack in Syria, and all the horrible things that happen to to children in many cases, and men and women, and people gasping for air, and suffocating, dying, horrific deaths. I mean, it's horrible stuff to see. It's it's gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching. It makes your heart hurt. It's horrible to watch that kind of stuff. And the thing is, it's selective. So you've got all these images of all these, kids, suffering under this chemical attack, which was a horrible event, no matter how it happened. But what you don't see the media focus on and concentrate on are horrible events that don't fit the narrative that they want to push for. So, for example, from Reuters, suspect in Stockholm truck attack admits terrorist crime. So, some whack job jihadist, drove a truck into a bunch of people in Sweden, wound up killing people, and this happens now more and more frequently. This seems to be the preferred tool of these jihadists to actually get a vehicle and drive it into people. You've had it happen multiple times. It just happened in Britain not too long ago. And you didn't really see the media concentrate on these dead people barely at all. So this is the article. A failed asylum seeker accused of ramming a truck into a Stockholm crowd last week, killing 4 people, has confessed to committing a terrorist crime, his lawyer said on Tuesday. Uzbekistan man Rakhmat Akilov, wanted for deportation at the time of Friday's attack, made his first court appearance entering the heavily guarded courtroom with a green sweater over his head and flanked by his sweater and a translator. Police say they believe the 39-year-old hijacked a beer truck and drove it into a busy pedestrian street in the Swedish capital before crashing into a department store. 2 Swedes, a British man and a Belgian woman, were killed in the attack. 15 were injured. 8 people remain in the hospital, including 2 in intensive care. The attack has shattered any sense Swedes had of being insulated from the militant violence that has hit other parts of Europe, but has prompted defiance from Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, who says Sweden will remain an open, tolerant society. So this guy was a rejected asylum seeker. He was set for deportation, and he was inspired by radical Islam, and he decides to drive a car into a bunch of people and kill them. And then you've got the Prime Minister of Sweden coming out and, you know, just being an apologist for this. And you see this time and time and time again. These attacks happen. You don't see the motive of the attack condemned. If it was, you know, if some guy believed in radical Buddhism and he went out and killed a bunch of people, I'd be like, hey, what's going on? You know, we got to watch out for these radical Buddhists. You know, if it was Christians, it doesn't matter. It's not. See, what they try to say is, if you condemn these radical Islamists, you know, these radical Islamicists, that it's going to be harmful to the moderate Muslim community. Well, let me tell you what's harmful to the moderate Muslim community. Radical Islamic terrorists, they do not like moderate Muslims. They think they are heretics and they murder them. So, I mean, it's total insanity, and it's just beyond, you know, irony that you've got this kind of behavior, you know, this kind of, the Prime Minister, you know, saying that we need to be accepting to the people that want to kill us when this event happened in Stockholm, of all places. I mean, talk about Stockholm Syndrome. My goodness. And you don't really hear that, you know, you don't see that on the media too much, but you do see the dead kids, you know, from the Syrian gas attack. And another one from the New York Post. ISIS claims responsibility for deadly church bombing in Egypt. Dozens of Palm Sunday worshippers were killed and nearly 100 hurt in Egypt when ISIS set off explosions in a pair of churches. At least 44 people were killed when a bomb detonated at a holy house in the Nile Delta town of Tanta, and another 11 were slain by a suicide bomber at a church in Alexandria, according to local officials. Hero cops likely saved lives in the second attack by stopping the suicide bomber at the door, forcing him to detonate his charge before going inside, according to reports. Islamic State claimed responsibility for both attacks. Grand Sheikh Ahmed El Tayyib, head of Egypt's Al-Azhar, the leading center of learning in Sunni Islam, condemned the earlier attack, calling it a despicable terrorist bombing that targeted the lives of innocents. And hey, I don't know who the heck this guy is, but what really needs to happen is the moderate Muslim community needs to be given a platform to be able to really condemn these attacks. There needs to be a reformation of Islam. It has to happen. It really does. You can't have these kind of events basically covered up by the media, and then, you know, you have the media and, you know, the Prime Minister of Sweden and all these different leaders of these countries and government officials and the media come out and actually blame the average people of those countries for not being accepting enough to the people that want to kill them, when they actually kill their own, the quote-unquote moderate Muslims in their own countries. So, you know, it's just totally hypocritical of the media, and it really illustrates their bias that they will really project something onto people if it fits their narrative. Jihadists have repeatedly targeted the country's Christian minority, which makes up 10% of the population. A local Islamic State affiliate claimed responsibility for a suicide bombing at a church in Cairo in December that killed 30 people, mostly women, as well as striking as a string of killings in the restive Sinai Peninsula that caused hundreds of Christians to flee to safer areas of the country. The group has threatened further attacks. So, ISIS is absolutely out of control. Our government, and others, the Saudi Arabian government and others have helped to spread ISIS into countries that it was never even in before. And, we've spread ISIS all around the world at this point, basically. And, it's a problem. We've got the Trump administration is starting to push back on ISIS. And, that's one aspect of it, is fighting ISIS on a military level, which is obviously a key aspect. The other aspect of it, because what it really boils down to, is radical Islam, that ideology. That needs to be battled on a cultural level as well, meaning we can't have the top people in the media and government being apologists for radical Islam every single time these kind of events happen, and actually covering up these events many times. So, or, lying by omission by just choosing not to report on them. And, it's a problem. It's been an ongoing issue. It's been a trend that does not seem to be getting better. And I think, we have a president now who absolutely battles political correctness. I think that's one of the best things about him, and there are many good things about our president, in my point of view, and in many people's point of view. And that is definitely one of the key things, is battling political correctness, because it actually does wind up getting people killed. So, we need to push for a reformation of Islam and give a platform to moderate Muslims. So hopefully that will start happening in the future. And now we move on to an article from the Star Tribune, and this is all about Neil Gorsuch. So Neil Gorsuch is the new Supreme Court Justice. He got confirmed, he got sworn in on Monday. And it was a glorious day for conservatives, because that was one of the main reasons that we voted for Trump, the vacant Supreme Court pick, because God forbid Hillary Clinton would have filled that vacancy. That would have been a nightmare. It would have been, it'd be Ruth Bader Ginsburg 2.0. Bye-bye Second Amendment, bye-bye First Amendment. Bye-bye Constitution, basically. I can't give Trump enough praise for picking Neil Gorsuch, for the Supreme Court. And, he's actually in there. It was a bit of a battle, but he's actually in there now. They had to trigger the nuclear option, which I wasn't sure Mitch McConnell would do. But he did it, so I got to give props to Mitch McConnell. So, from the Star Tribune, Gorsuch sworn into Supreme Court restores conservative tilt. Judge Neil Gorsuch took his place in history Monday as the newest addition on the bench of the Supreme Court, restoring a narrow conservative majority, and marking a much-needed political victory for President Donald Trump. Gorsuch was sworn in during a sun-soaked ceremony in the Rose Garden, nearly 14 months after the seat was left vacant with the sudden death of Justice Antonin Scalia. The oath was administered during the White House ceremony by Justice Anthony Kennedy, whom Gorsuch once served as a law clerk. A smiling Trump stood behind his nominee, and he did have quite the smile on his face. It was the second of two oaths, the first conducted privately in the Justice's conference room by Chief Justice John Roberts. Quote, "To the Scalia family, I won't ever forget that the seat I inherit today is that of a very, very great man," Gorsuch said to the audience of family and administration staffers, as well as all the sitting Supreme Court justices. quote, "I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great nation," he said. So this is a guy who is going. Has an originalist view of the Constitution, meaning he thinks it means what it says, which is good. So he is going to interpret laws as they should be interpreted by the Constitution, not what he thinks the law should be. That's called judicial activism. That's a bad thing. That's what we have legislators for. That's what we have the people who actually make the laws for. So it's a very good thing, a very, very good thing. Our Second Amendment has probably been saved among many other things, and it was a battle. So they had to trigger the nuclear option, meaning they had to call the Democratic filibuster unconstitutional and make it to where it only required a simple majority of 51 votes instead of the 60 votes that the Democrats wanted. Now, the Democrats say that there is a 60-vote tradition for the Supreme Court, which is total BS. The only rule that there has ever been is that it only takes 51 votes, but what has happened is there have been multiple judges that have been sworn in with 60 votes or more. So they've been sworn in on, or got confirmed rather, on a bipartisan level. So the tradition has always been it only takes 51 votes, but many judges have gone through with more than that, have gone through with over 60. There have also been judges that have gone through with less than 60 before. What hasn't happened, in fact, which only ever happened once before in history, I think, of the United States, is a filibuster of a Supreme Court justice. Now, a Supreme Court nominee. Now, it was the Democrats who were breaking tradition by pushing for a filibuster of the Supreme Court nominee. And what's hilarious is they're saying that, this is just destroying the Senate by the normal rules of the Senate by using the nuclear option, when they themselves, the Democrats, they don't stand on principles. I mean, many of them, they flip-flop all around. I mean, it is incredible because they used the nuclear option to pass through Obama nominees for the Justice Department. So, I mean, it is completely ridiculous and just absolutely silly that they're coming out, or not. It was for judges that the Obama administration was trying to appoint. They actually wound up using the nuclear option, and now the Democrats are saying that, it's such a horrible thing to use the nuclear option, saying they're breaking tradition, when really they're the ones breaking tradition by trying to filibuster a Supreme Court nominee, especially when it's a nominee that passed the test from the Bar Association or whatever, got a high score from the Bar Association, and when he was nominated for the appellate court in like 2003 or 2006, he was confirmed unanimously by a Senate that included Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, the main guy leading the whole filibuster thing, and Joe Biden and others. So just total ludicrous hypocrisy from the Democrats as usual. And it didn't really matter in the long run, all their filibuster talk, because the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell actually did the right thing, and I really got to give him props for for deploying the nuclear option, for pushing the red button. That is the only red button I want pushed right now. I think we're a little closer to World War III than I'd like to be, but I like that red button being pushed. So That is definitely a very good thing. And in more good Trump news, because I think there needs to be a little more positive Trump news out there, at least right now. The whole Syria situation is something I'm going to make another video about. I've made multiple videos on, and it's an ongoing situation. But I think one thing it has done a little bit is distract people from a lot of the positive things that Trump has already done. And I mean, you can always remember this. We were this close to having Hillary Clinton. So, from Reuters, Toyota makes $1.33 billion investment in Kentucky plant. Japanese automaker Toyota Motor Corp said it is spending $1.3 billion in its Kentucky plant as part of a plan to invest $10 billion in the United States over the next 5 years. The investment in the plant, Toyota's largest, comes amid uncertainty over U.S. President Donald Trump's trade policies that could affect certain Japanese firms' capital expenditure plans. Trump criticized the automaker earlier this year and said he would impose a hefty fee if it built its Corolla cars for the U.S. market at a plant in Mexico. Toyota joins a host of automakers, including Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, Honda Motor Co., and Daimler AG, that have announced investments in the United States since Trump won the U.S. election. Even U.S. car manufacturers Ford Motor and General Motors have announced plans to spend more domestically. Toyota's decision to invest $1.3 in their Kentucky plant is further evidence that manufacturers are now confident that the economic climate has greatly improved under my administration, Trump said in a statement issued by Toyota. So, that's definitely a highlight on the fact that there are a lot of positive things going on because of the Trump presidency. And that is one of the biggest things, is the investment. You've had now hundreds of billions of dollars invested and pledged to be invested in the United States by a laundry list of different companies. And they're doing this because Trump is saying he is going to make a better climate for businesses in the United States. He is going to absolutely destroy job-killing regulations. I mean, we've got a regulatory state in this country that costs us something like $2 trillion. It's absolutely insane. And he's going to cut the corporate tax rate, which right now sits at about 30%. He's hoping to cut that down to about 15%. So cut it in half. And I mean, you don't have to be an economic expert to know that if companies have more money in their pocket, they're going to have more money to be able to invest, more money to hire more people, more money to expand, and that all means a growing economy. That means more jobs for everybody. That means a lot of very good things, and you can see that happening with all the investment, the hundreds of billions of dollars in investment in the United States. So, I just want to remind people that I know we are in a crazy time. We're probably more close to World War III than honestly we've ever really been. Tensions with Russia are beyond Cold War levels. You've got the threats from North Korea. You've got China, that is its own threat in many ways. There are some seriously dangerous situations brewing around the world geopolitically, and all the analysts say that we are in some very dangerous times. But I want to remind people that we were this close to having Hillary Clinton. And Trump is doing great things, some wonderful things, getting rid of TPP, adding all the jobs, the regulation cuts, Neil Gorsuch. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So try to remember the good, but that's no excuse to not stand by your principles. And that's all I'm here to do, is stand by my principles. And I hope you guys can appreciate that. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please tune in for more. If you got a comment, if you would like to chime in on the conversation, have any suggestions, tips, or if you'd like to add to the conversation in some way, I hope you would do so. If you'd like to hear the audio version, I've got that on SoundCloud. Also, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I'll have the links for all that in the description. Have a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.